Welcome back to another My Hero Academia anime vs manga video breaking down season 7 episode 21 titled Battle Without a Quirk, sharing the same title as chapter 396. The season 7 finale is here as we get Armored All Might versus All for One. The episode begins with all of the Toga doubles fading away right before reaching the Todoroki family and Ida. One of the doubles that fades away does make it to Hawks and only cuts the side of Hawks' face as he looks at Toga in the eyes and says to the double that her wanting to kill him was fair because Twice was a decent man. The double begins to cry as we switch over to the real Toga standing over the body of Ochako. As she looks at the doubles fading away, she says in narration that she thought she had wielded her knife to become those she loves, but she wound up gripping it out of rage and hatred, all in order to make the world easier for her to live in. Toga then feels pain from the blowback of using other quirks, and she notices that Ochako is letting all of the heroes affected by her zero gravity down to the ground gently, and how she would never let anyone down hard. Ochako, struggling to breathe, thinks about how cold she feels from the amount of blood she lost and can't move a single muscle, but she needs to move to stay alive. Toga sees the heroes being let down as she holds on to her blood-sucking machine. She thinks about what Ochako said about her smile being the cutest in the world, and she looks at Ochako and says that losing that much blood will be fatal. She tells Ochako that the League of Villains will destroy everything, and she knows that the world they create will be easier for her to live in. Toga then gets on her knees and drinks a mouthful of Ochako's blood, transforming into her, as she continues to say that the thought of a world without her is one that she doesn't like. Toga takes syringes from her blood-sucking machine and sticks a syringe in both her and Ochako's arm. Toga, still feeling the blowback from her quirk, slightly loses her Ochako form and begins to cry as she states to show Ochako how genuine her feelings are, all of her blood is now Ochako's to have. Toga's blood flows through the tubes into Ochako's body, making her feel warm. Ochako comes to the realization that Toga doing this will mean that Toga will die, but she struggles to say anything. Toga tells Ochako that Twice had saved her own life in this same exact way, but since Twice's blood ran out, she instead has to turn into her, since she figures that if she can use someone else's quirk, then her blood has to turn into their blood as well. Ochako tells Toga to stop, but as Toga stitches up her wounds, she wonders if Ochako was planning on visiting her in prison to keep her promise of giving her blood until the day she dies. That Ochako could have been just like every other hero and just have killed her, but she spared a thought for someone who did so many terrible things and calls Ochako weird. Ochako, barely able to talk, pleads with Toga to not do this. Toga says she lives and loves as she pleases, so she can't let Ochako catch her, just like how Ochako can't let Toga get away with what she's done, and she regrets having stabbed and yelled at Ochako. After Toya, for the sake of Toga, burned down her old house filled with negativity made her happy, all of that negativity from that old house was still there in her heart. Ochako didn't make it go away either, but as painful as it all was, when Ochako reached out and touched her, Toga's heart felt so light, almost as if it would just float away. The two begin to cry as Toga tells Ochako that she had made her truly, genuinely happy. In narration, Toga states that in fits of jealousy and affection, she drank the blood of those she wanted to become, but maybe if she had known this feeling sooner, then despite how badly she wanted to drain their blood, she would have yearned to give her blood away. If she had experienced this sort of love, then maybe she would have had an easier time living in the world, as we see Toga letting the sparrow live as she watches it fly away. Toga then says in any case, she is Himiko Toga. She lives and loves how she pleases, and that's how she made her way in life. Just a normal girl with the cutest smile in the world. Toga is then last seen hugging Ochako as she dies, sacrificing sacrificing herself to save the one person who made her feel like a normal human being. Finally, we switch over to All Might rewinding the clock back to 20 minutes before the Toga doubles faded away, as All Might sees All for One coming in his direction. All Might thinks of Sir Night-Eye and his foresight of All Might's death, where he saw that a villain will give All Might an unspeakably gruesome death, and acknowledges that if Sir Night-Eye's prediction was correct, then this fight is it for him. And so begins the ultimate confrontation between hero and villain. Though quirkless, All Might doesn't arrive empty-handed, as he is shown to be holding a briefcase, as well as joined by his car Hercules. The briefcase and Hercules end up forming a whole powered suit, with Hercules acting as All Might's support item, thus giving us the debut of Armored All Might, as well as his iconic "I am here" catchphrase. And man, was All Might suiting up just the coolest. I will say right now that throughout the rest of the episode, the anime does add moments from All Might's perspective where it shows the actual Hercules AI and the suit's mechanisms working overtime when he fights. This emotional scene not only had fans hyped up to finally get to see All Might have a heroic return without taking any shine away from Deku, but we see that All Might is taking Sir Night-Eye's foresight of his death head on and facing fate on his own terms, similar to Deku during his fight with Overall. The suit itself is a massive Easter egg to Marvel's Iron Man, as the briefcase and suit was actually inspired by Iron Man's Mark V suit as seen in Iron Man 2, where Tony Stark is seen carrying a briefcase around that would later be used to transform itself into a full-body Iron Man suit around Tony Stark. For those that don't know, Horikoshi is a massive fan of Marvel, and around the time the suit first began to form around All Might in chapter 386, Horikoshi had stated that the Mark V was his favorite Iron Man suit. With the suit fully formed around his body, we see that the suit not only takes inspiration from Marvel, but DC as well. The suit sports a power source like arc reactor in the center of the chest, similar to the many Iron Man armors, but as well as an open mouth cowl, similar to Batman in the way that the suit itself is black, and we are able to visibly see All Might smile. The open mouth cowl also acts as a callback to All Might roasting Deku for having a smiling mouth guard to mimic the signature No Fear All Might smile, which makes sense that All Might wouldn't have his mouth protected, as it would take away from his origin and homage to his master and former One For All user Nana Shimura. And speaking of All Might's former master, the color scheme of the suit itself is a huge reference to Nana Shimura, with the suit's colors being black, gold, resembling the colors of Nana Shimura's costume. The suit even acts as a reference to All Might himself, as the suit contains two iron tufts on his head, resembling All Might's signature two tufts of hair. As the fight is about to begin, All Might tells Hercules to begin recording so that he can keep Tsukauchi updated on the fight. Aiba, aka La Brava, overhearing this and seeing that All Might is about to fight All For One, begins to live stream the fight for the world to see. One of the officers in the background wonders if streaming everything was her bankai, a bankai being a reference to one of Shonen Jump's original big three mangas, that being Bleach. While La Brava was excited by the fight, Tsukauchi on the other hand felt nothing but pain, as he was potentially going to see his now quirkless friend get brutally ended while the world watched, as in a world full of superpowered beings, a quirkless individual would have no chance at stopping someone like All For One. Which this bit of dialogue not only references how the world of My Hero Academia views quirkless individuals wanting to become heroes, taking on super villains, like how we see the recreation of Deku asking All Might if he could be a hero like him in the beginning of the series, now with a younger All Might in his place, to show that yes, quirkless individuals could be heroes, but the entire fight itself acts as a meta reference to the original My Hero Academia story and the criticisms brought on by fans and the editors of the My Hero Academia team on Horikoshi's original plot for the series. To keep things short, originally My Hero Academia was going to follow a completely quirkless Izuku Midoriya, meaning that at no point in the series was Deku going to be receiving a quirk. Horikoshi's editors at the time had told him that the story would be better off if the main protagonist had a superpower, with most of the fandom later agreeing that the story had benefited with Deku having One For All, as many would feel that the fights would have been dull, boring, and pointless against villains with superpowers. Armored All Might versus All For One acts as Horikoshi's way of proving proving that his original concept would have been just as entertaining and action-packed. Continuing on, the fight finally begins as an enraged All For One sends a powerful shockwave towards All Might, proving him right that All For One wouldn't be able to ignore him. Though All For One knows All Might's true goal is to just stall time for Deku, All Might quickly charges towards the blast, telling Hercules to activate Red. Hercules is essentially the Jarvis of the My Hero Academia universe, with the Hercules AI giving All Might updates on his suit's conditions and sending out attacks that All Might calls out for, such as Red, where parts of Hercules forms a barrier in front of All Might, protecting him from incoming attacks. The move itself is a reference to Red Riot, aka Kirishima, whose quirk allows him to harden his body, essentially turning him into a walking tank. The shockwave completely shatters Red, lowering Hercules' shields by 66%. All Might, unfazed by the news, continues charging towards All For One, smiling. After sending out such a powerful attack, All For One's right arm is completely destroyed, but begins to regenerate. As All For One charges at All Might calls out for Black Whip, where we see little drones and his forearms shoot out cables, impaling All For One. As soon as All For One is impaled by them, he immediately calls out for Chargeable, electrifying the Black Whip cables. Both of All Might's attacks are references to different heroes and their quirks, Black Whip being a reference to the 5th user of One For All, Lariat, aka Daigoro Banjo, and his quirk Black Whip, as well as Deku, and the 2nd hero being Chargeable, aka Kaminari, whose powers are based on electricity. The electric current shooting into All For One ends up slowing down his regeneration, and All Might relentlessly continues his attacks, reeling All For One in with Cellophane, named after Sero's quirk, and then calling out for Buildup, which has Hercules send out a reinforced boot for his leg. Buildup being a reference to potentially Fa Jin, the 3rd user of One For All's quirk. Once the reinforced boot attaches to his leg, he yells out Sugar Man, referencing Sato's quirk that allows him to get stronger for every gram of sugar he intakes. The boot attaching to All Might, giving him that Sugar Man-esque boost of strength. As All Might gets closer to All For One, he begins to taunt him on how his approach to this fight, by trying to wear him down with ranged attacks, only works on those with quirks and won't work on him. Tsukauchi, witnessing All Might defy the odds, we get a cameo appearance from Melissa Shield from the Two Heroes movie, confirming that the suit was made thanks to her help. Plus, thanks to the volume 39 extra pages, we know that this suit took almost all of All Might's entire fortune to create the suit and car, and with the armored suit and Hercules having to be done in a hurry, it never went through proper testing, meaning that it wasn't even guaranteed to be safe for All Might prior to him putting on the suit. All Might hits All For One with a shoot style smash, referencing Deku's fighting style, while smiling, claiming that not once in his entire life had he gone into a battle expecting to lose. When All Might brings up his and All For One's fate to fight each other, the anime adds in shots of the current armored All Might and All For One standing face to face, and All Might and All For One facing each other pre-Kamino. As he continuously hits All For One with shoot style, he begins to taunt him, stating that a real Demon Lord would be aghast getting whooped by a quirkless man, a ploy to keep All For One fixated solely on him. Hearing this, All For One, enraged, fires off a blast of a fusion of different quirks that sends All Might flying through buildings. This automatically activates All Might's utility cape, Auto Guard Dark Shadow, protecting him from heavy damage. The utility cape is a heavy reference to Tokoyami's quirk Dark Shadow, and even functions similar to Tokoyami's Black Abyss. Sadly, the cape is destroyed along with pieces of his suit, but luckily All Might's armored suit also contains some sort of nanotech, where it can repair damaged sections of the suit, similar to Iron Man's nano suit, where the nanotech would repair damaged sections of the suit, making them brand new while leaving certain parts of his body unprotected. All For One tells All Might the trash bag he's wearing made him lose all perspective, and that his gadgets can go beyond their limits. Knowing this, All Might acknowledges how he had seen many heroes unable to wield their power after losing their items, to which he remembers his first run-in with Nana Shimura and how she scolded him for thinking he was going to win a fight against a group of villains using a lead pipe. The fight continues as All Might punches All For One in the face, but All For One tanks the punch and tells All Might that he didn't fall for his trick to stall him, while blasting off another shockwave at close range, hitting All Might, making him laugh as Hercules launches out Pinky, a super acid injection referencing Mina that All Might stabs into All For One's gut, dissolving him from the inside. But All Might is then sent flying, crashing through Tatooine Station, the same exact station from Chapter 1 where Deku watched Kamui Woods and Mount Lady take down the giant villain. When All Might crash lands on a building, the suit updates All Might on his physical conditions, reading that he has fractured ribs, full body contusions, and his respiratory system malfunctioning. After hearing this, All Might notices that right across from him was the same rooftop him and Deku once stood upon back in Chapter 1, where Deku first asked if he could become a hero just like him. This callback to Chapter 1 just hits extremely hard, as All Might is not only doing what he told Deku was impossible in becoming a hero without a quirk, but we see All Might finally fully embracing his origins and how, just like Deku, he too was a quirkless kid brimming with youth who wanted nothing more than to become a hero who would bring peace to the world. Throughout the series, All Might has gone through a lot of inner turmoil on how powerless and useless he felt after losing One For All in the Battle of Kamino. In turn, this made him spiral down into feeling distant from heroes and heroism itself, becoming a shell of his former self. And constantly throughout the fight, we see All Might having flashbacks to when he first met Nana Shimura prior to receiving One For All, where similar to Deku, we see him following Nana Shimura, wanting to assist her and wanting to step up to change the world so that people won't have to live in fear regardless of him not having a quirk, thus becoming a symbol of peace. It's within these flashbacks that proves that All Might was always a hero in service of others without the need of One For All, as One For All isn't what made him a true hero, but it was his ambitions and call to action that made him one, which also made him a worthy successor for One For All in the first place, bringing All Might's arc in My Hero Academia full circle and becoming the hero he always had been without One For All, thus bringing back the light in his eyes that was once dark in his quirkless state. Continuing on, Armored All Might notices All For One becoming younger and does his iconic laugh, for a major detail removed when All Might laughs from the joy of being a hero. The anime doesn't show All Might's entire journey in the series like it did in the manga, as Hercules sends out a few more items that attaches to All Might's suit. He then activates his thrusters, Uravity, and Ingenium to full throttle, referencing both Ochako and Ida. All Might then says, "Class A, lend me your strength," as the anime adds in shots showing everyone from Class A, and even adding in a scene of Kaminari from the top of UA looking down at Deku and Shigaraki. All Might and Deku are then shown to be able to sense each other during their respective fights due to their shared connection with One For All. And the episode ends with All Might saying, "Let's win this, Midoriya," as we see both Armored All Might and Deku facing off against their respective villains. And in the post-credits scene, we head back to a destroyed UA in the sky and see Bakugo's blood-covered All Might card, ending the season with a "to be continued." Now, the episode covered a total of 4 chapters, them being chapters 395, 396, 397, and 398. This episode was amazing and honestly was the perfect way to end the season. The fight was really the culmination of everything Horikoshi loves, and to finally see some of the Armored All Might versus All For One fight in animation was such a treat, and I can't wait to see the rest of the fight be animated because it only gets crazier from here. Let me know your thoughts on the episode. Did they cook with the changes? Did you find the suit up process as fire as I did? Let me know everything in the comment section below. With that said, if you enjoyed the video, then be sure to Detroit smash that like button, and if you are new to the Kitoroki channel, then be sure to subscribe to the channel with notifications on so that you don't miss any My Hero Academia final season breakdowns in 2025. With that said, I'll see you all in the next one.